I was slicing the last of the birthday cake when I heard it. Through the thin kitchen wall, right past the clinking of wine glasses and shallow laughter, came the sentence that split something in my chest. "You could do so much better. He's sweet, but come on." Laughter followed. Her laughter, my wife's, a soft, mean little exhale, the kind you give when you agree but don't want to say it outright. It wasn't even that they were talking about me like I wasn't in the house. It was that she didn't stop them. She didn't say, "He's a good man." She didn't say, "He's my husband." She laughed. I stood there for a second with the cake knife still in my hand, frosting smudged along the edge. You know how in the movies a guy drops a glass when he hears bad news? I didn't drop anything. I just set the knife down neatly, turned off the kitchen light, and walked out to clear the plates, because I still had a role to play, didn't I? "Dessert?" I said with that same smile I'd worn for 10 years, the one that used to be real. "Oh, you're a lifesaver," said Candace, the one with the champagne giggle and fake empathy eyes. "This dinner was amazing." My wife didn't look at me, just scrolled her phone like she was already elsewhere. That night in bed, I didn't say a word. She climbed in beside me, turned her back, and started swiping through her stories. No kiss, no conversation, just her screen glowing while my thoughts rotted beside her. I stared at the ceiling fan like it could spin the poison out of my chest. I didn't even feel angry. Not yet, just misfiled, like I'd been demoted to background furniture without being told. I deserved to hear that from her, not them, not whispered between sips of overpriced Malbec. But here's the thing. Most men don't snap in that moment. No yelling, no dramatic, "We need to talk." We catalog. We store that moment away with a little yellow tab, "Notice served," and then we shift, quietly. So I stopped doing the little things. Not out of spite, just to see if she'd notice. I stopped asking if she needed anything from the store, stopped warming her car before her morning yoga class, didn't restock her oat milk creamer, didn't fold her running gear with mine, and nothing. Not even a hiccup in her routine. That was the moment I realized I wasn't in her world. I was just servicing it. I started going for longer walks, took the scenic route home from work, sat on park benches watching ducks fight over breadcrumbs just so I wouldn't have to walk back into that house and feel like a visitor. One afternoon, I watched a man at a bus stop give up his seat to an older woman. He didn't look around for praise. He didn't post about it later. He just did it. And I thought, that's who I used to be, someone who gave without needing to be seen. The worst part of betrayal isn't the affair, it's the erosion, the slow, daily acid drip of disregard. That dinner party, that was just the day I noticed the rot. And if you've ever been through something like this, or even if you're just wondering whether you're going crazy or being quietly replaced, do yourself a favor. Hit subscribe. Over 97% of you listen without subscribing, but when you do, it tells our team to keep pushing, to go deeper, to tell the stories that don't get told, the ones that hit hard. Because what happened next didn't just change my marriage, it changed me. Back in our bedroom, she turned off her phone and mumbled, "Night." I didn't say it back. Instead, I watched her silhouette and wondered what it would be like if she turned around and said, "I don't think you're sweet. I think you're strong, and I'm lucky." She didn't. So I did what every man who's been quietly sized down has done. I started preparing for the moment she'd find out I was never the one who was replaceable. The first time she mentioned Trevor from work, I didn't think much of it. "He just got back from Dubai." "Said it's overrated," she said while picking at her salad like the lettuce had offended her. "But I guess when you own the time, you see the world differently." That was the appetizer. Then came the comparisons. "Trevor says investing in real estate is the only smart way to grow. Maybe we should have bought that cabin instead of fixing the furnace." The board asked Trevor to lead the quarterly. They really trust him to communicate upward. "Trevor doesn't believe in bare minimum energy. He says you've got to act like a CEO even if no one calls you one yet." Trevor, Trevor, Trevor. I'd never met the man, but by month 2 of her passive-aggressive admiration, I knew his diet, his portfolio strategy, and the fact that his ex-wife still texts him when she needs advice. Of course she does. Meanwhile, I was unclogging the downstairs bathroom and replacing the filter in the furnace she insisted we fix instead of replace. "Why do you always look tired lately?" she said once, not even glancing up from her laptop. "Maybe because I was in the crawl space for 4 hours?" "Well, Trevor says you should outsource things like that. Time is money." And there it was, the new currency of respect in our house. Not character, not history, efficiency, gloss, volume. I didn't argue. I don't fight battles where the outcome's already decided. Instead, I started treating my life like a project with a deadline, only this one didn't end with reconciliation. It ended with escape. I made lists, clean ones, legal ones, bank accounts, utilities, life insurance policies. One by one, I shifted things, not illegally, not sneakily, just smartly, tactfully. Years ago, she'd insisted we split bills from separate personal checking accounts because it's more modern. I agreed then. Now, it gave me all the room I needed. I unlinked my salary from our joint savings, started redirecting deposits to an account under my name only, one I opened before we were married, long forgotten in her world of Instagram quotes about aligned partnerships. The furnace repairs, I paid for those from that account, documented it, even emailed the invoice to myself. Same for the water heater, the roof inspection, the landscaping quote she pretended to not see. "Didn't you say you were going to trim those hedges?" she asked one Sunday. "I outsourced it," I said. "Time is money, right?" She blinked like she didn't recognize the echo of her own words. Still, I fixed things, paid the property taxes, resealed the windows before winter, but I did it all with the quiet precision of someone preparing to hand over a perfectly packed bag before leaving forever. She called me predictable once, right in the middle of dinner. "You always order the same thing, you wear the same jacket, you're just comfortable. You say that like it's a flaw." She didn't reply. I started staying later at work, not because I loved my job, hell, I didn't, but because I loved the quiet, the separation, the mental rehearsal of the exit. One night I sat in the driveway for 40 minutes listening to a podcast about legal rights during separation. Another night I spent an hour reading state laws about asset division. Did you know that in our state, verbal agreements around real estate mean nothing if the paperwork is filed otherwise? She didn't. There was a photo on the fridge, us in Maine, smiling years ago. She hadn't looked like that in a long time. Neither had I. I took it down, not out of spite, just inventory. Every time she threw a dart, "You never push yourself. I just wish you had more ambition." Trevor's ex says he was intense, but in a good way. I logged it. Words are currency too, and I was saving everyone. She was pushing me out, and I was building the landing before I jumped. "I think I want to separate," she said on a Tuesday. No drama, no tears. Just like she was ordering a seasonal latte she wasn't sure she'd like. I was sitting at the dining table reviewing our utility bills, half listening to a podcast. I paused it. "You think?" I asked, not looking up. I need to feel alive again. Things feel stagnant, flat, like I'm stuck in someone else's story." She said it the way a person explains a canceled gym membership. Casual, reasonable, vaguely noble. No mention of Trevor, of course, just a vague spiritual itch that apparently couldn't be scratched inside a marriage. "All right," I said, not out of shock. I'd already prepared for this conversation. I just didn't expect her to be that rehearsed. She blinked. "That's it? You're not going to fight for us?" "No," I said. "You already decided. You're just informing me." She was expecting a monologue, a pleading arc, a wounded husband who would unravel and beg her to stay, but instead, she got a nod, a quiet return to the spreadsheet I'd been editing. 3 weeks later, she packed a single suitcase, hugged our dog, he didn't wag his tail, and moved into a modern apartment complex downtown with a rooftop pool and wine dispensers in the lobby. "This doesn't have to be the end," she said at the door, trying to sound diplomatic. "Let's just take space, feel things out." "Sure," I said. "Go feel." She didn't ask for help with her boxes, didn't even give me her new address, just backed out of the driveway with her chin high and her Spotify blaring some song that probably had the word empowered in the chorus. I stood in the doorway for a long time after she left. Not because I missed her, I was calculating, reviewing timelines, confirming what I already knew. That quitclaim deed she signed 2 years ago, when we refinanced and the banker said it's just for paperwork, a formality, was now my ace. I called the county clerk's office and had it pulled, notarized, and re-recorded. Quietly, no fireworks, just ink and patience. Then I changed the locks. Not out of spite, out of protocol. You don't leave the vault open after the thief walks out. A month after her departure, I got my first glimpse of Better on Instagram. There she was, pressed up against a guy with mirrored sunglasses, sculpted facial hair, and that smug mouth open in every photo vibe. Trevor, or as he now called himself online, T. Royce, digital marketing guru, lifestyle coach, and amateur DJ. They were in Cancun, then Napa, then standing in front of a rented Tesla with matching hoodies that read "Energy Excuses." The caption? New chapter, new energy. I laughed, out loud, alone in my kitchen with the dog snoring under the table. She'd traded 10 years of stability, loyalty, and quiet strength for abs, algorithm wisdom, and least luxury. I didn't comment, didn't like the photo, didn't even tell mutual friends what I thought. I just called my accountant and said, let's proceed. We finalized the transition of all shared liabilities into her name. Credit card she maxed out redecorating the guest room, the Peloton she stopped using after 2 weeks, the car lease she'd begged for and hadn't paid on since May, all hers now, officially. She texted once around that time. Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you need anything. Need? I needed her to keep posting, keep smiling that fake, just leveled up smile, because the more she performed, the more obvious it became. She thought I was standing still while she ascended, but the truth was, she'd left the ground floor thinking she found an elevator. She didn't realize I'd built a staircase behind the wall, a real one that went up, quietly, permanently, without her. The first text came at 10:43 p.m. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. I stared at it for a second, then locked my phone and set it face down. The nerve. After weeks of radio silence and influencer captions about vibrational alignment and surrounding yourself with abundance, she suddenly remembered I existed, on a weeknight, after her motivational man of the hour had probably passed out from too much tequila or too little depth. The second message came 15 minutes later. You don't have to reply. I just wanted to know you're all right. That one made me laugh. She didn't want to know I was all right. She wanted to confirm that I was still orbiting her gravity, still stuck, still emotionally parked where she left me, like a Netflix tab she could return to when the trendy series ended in disappointment. I didn't respond, because at that exact moment, I was on the back porch of my sister's house, watching my youngest nephew eat an ice cream cone upside down and somehow get chocolate in his eyebrows. My brother-in-law was telling a terrible dad joke, the kind that made everyone groan and still laugh, and for the first time in years, I wasn't checking the clock. I wasn't worrying about what mood I'd walk into when I got home. I wasn't trying to measure up to someone else's version of success. I was just present, and I liked who I was in that space. My sister, who never liked my wife but had the decency to pretend, looked over and said, "You look 10 years younger." "Feels like it," I said, sipping a soda and leaning back into the chair. "No background noise," she smiled. "You're not going to fall for it, right?" I didn't need to ask what it was. "Not even tempted," I said, and I meant it. The call came the next night, no text this time, just a ring at 11:07 p.m. I watched her name light up the screen, first name only, bold white letters on a black background. Funny how phones never lie. That contact hadn't been changed or updated in years. It rang 4 times, then straight to voicemail. I didn't listen to the message, I deleted it. Instead, I went back to the book I'd been reading, something on Stoic philosophy that didn't try to sell me anything, didn't flirt with motivational fluff, just offered quiet truths. And in the margin, I wrote something that stuck with me. Healing is never loud, desperation is. I started caring for myself again, not out of spite, not to prove anything, just because I'd finally remembered I was worth it. I went back to therapy, not the emergency kind, but the maintenance kind. I stopped eating standing up, started cooking meals with more than one ingredient. I canceled our shared streaming accounts and rediscovered music without lyrics. And for the first time in a decade, I slept through the night. No tension in the chest, no checking to see if someone had come home, no waiting for a bedroom door to close with just the right amount of resentment. She thought I'd be there, sitting in the wreckage, playing the loyal role, waiting for my cue. But I wasn't. I was out, breathing, reclaiming the quiet, relearning the shape of a life that wasn't built around her moods, her whims, or her curated emptiness. The ruins she left behind, they weren't mine anymore. It started with the lighting. The photos she posted began to change, not in subject matter at first, but in mood. The glow that used to scream, "I'm thriving," started to dim. Her once effortless smirks turned into rehearsed half-smiles. There was a stiffness in her jaw, a hollowness behind the eyes that filters couldn't hide. Even Trevor, sorry, T. Royce, looked less performative, more distracted, like he was already calculating his exit but waiting for the right sponsorship deal before pulling the plug. Their couple's selfies used to come every few days. Gym mirror shots, rooftop bars, her in yoga leggings doing the laughing over shoulder pose while he smirked like he invented confidence. But lately, nothing for nearly 2 weeks. And when a new post did surface, it was just her, alone, No caption, no emojis, no tag. Comments were turned off. That's when my phone buzzed. Not from her, but from Jenna. One of her more decent friends, the kind who'd stayed polite to me out of guilt, not loyalty. Hey, you didn't get this from me, but have you seen this? Attached was a screenshot from someone's Instagram story, blurry, zoomed in, two people outside a bar, her better with his arm around a woman in a red dress, tall, brunette, clearly not my wife. The angle was unmistakable, his hand on the small of her back, his mouth close to her ear, her face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in any of his posts with my wife. The caption written by a stranger, probably drunk, definitely unfiltered. Isn't this guy married? I read it twice, then a third time. Then I set my phone down, exhaled once, and poured myself a drink, not in celebration, not even in schadenfreude, just in quiet, ironic acceptance. Of course, that was always the thing about Trevor. He wasn't a villain. He wasn't even clever. He was a placeholder, the human equivalent of a dramatic haircut after a breakup, meant to feel fresh, edgy, liberating, until the mirror stops lying. And now the mirror had started telling the truth. I didn't respond to Jenna, didn't thank her or ask for updates. I didn't need confirmation. I already knew. The next day, I checked her page again. Nothing new, no apology, no explanation. Just an old quote she'd posted weeks earlier, still pinned at the top of her profile. Protect your peace, even if it means losing people. I smiled at that, because for once we agreed on something. Later that week, a mutual acquaintance forwarded me a group photo from a birthday dinner I hadn't been invited to. She was in it, seated far from him. Her eyes weren't on the camera, they were on her wine glass. He wasn't in the next photo at all. And then came the DMs, quiet ones, from people I hadn't heard from in years. Hey, I always thought you were a good guy. Just wanted to say, you deserved better. Some people don't realize what they had until it posts a tax return. I didn't answer any of them, because I wasn't looking for validation. I wasn't waiting for the collapse. But now that it was happening, I understood something important. Her world was never stable. It was curated, held together by hashtags and assumptions, buoyed by compliments from people who'd never seen her rage when the sushi wasn't fresh enough or the wine wasn't room temperature but elegant. That life? It was cracking. And unlike me, she hadn't built an escape hatch, so she stayed inside, posing, pretending, reposting quotes about endurance while wondering when the next arm would wrap around her for the camera and when it would let go after. She showed up on a Saturday, around noon, midday sun, no makeup, wearing the same hoodie I used to find crumpled on our laundry chair. She didn't knock right away, just stood there, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, like someone stalling before a confession. She hadn't been to that doorstep since the day she left. Back then, she didn't even glance back. The engine roared and she vanished with her tote bag full of space. Now she stood there alone, her confidence fraying in the corners. The house looked the same on the outside. Same hedges, same porch swing, same wind chime she once insisted was too kitschy. Only now, the swing creaked with no rhythm. The flower pots were empty, and the key in her hand, the one she'd kept all this time, convinced it meant something, no longer fit. She tried once, then again. The third time, she jiggled the knob like maybe the house just forgot her. But locks don't have memories. They just obey. The neighbor, Mr. Collin from across the street, happened to be watering his lawn. "You looking for Dan?" he called out. She turned, startled. "Yes, I'm just stopping by." "He moved last week," he said, letting the hose trail off. "Didn't leave much, just a small van. Said he was going somewhere quieter." She blinked. "He didn't tell me." He squinted. I guess that was the point. She tried to smile, but it cracked before it formed. She stood there for another minute, holding that useless key like it might still unlock something symbolic. Then she walked to the mailbox, brushed her fingers over the nameplate. D. Mercer. Just that. No and wife, no joint name, no hint she'd ever lived there. She opened the flap. Empty. No forwarding sticker. No return address labels. Not even the usual junk mail. Just a bare metal box with no space left for nostalgia. She called me, twice, straight to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. What could she say? Oops. Turns out the upgrade was a downgrade? I need help with the lease on a luxury apartment I can't afford alone? Whatever it was, I didn't hear it, didn't want to. She stood on the sidewalk for a while longer, arms folded like she was cold. The wind had picked up, blowing the edge of her hoodie against her cheek. Maybe she thought I'd pull up any second. Come home, find her there like some scene out of a second chance movie. But life isn't a rerun, not this one. She lingered long enough to get a few looks from passing cars, then finally walked to hers, same Audi she fought to keep in the split, even though the payments were drowning her. She sat inside for several minutes before driving off. No dramatic peel out, just a slow, defeated crawl away from the place she used to call home. But homes aren't places, they're people, and she hadn't chosen me when she had the chance. Now, the choice wasn't hers. Can we talk? I made a mistake. That was the first message, simple, direct, soaked in late-night regret. The second one came 12 hours later. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. No punctuation. Like she couldn't decide if it was a confession or a plea. I sat on the floor of my new apartment, drinking black coffee from a chipped mug I found at a thrift store down the block. The morning light poured in through the oversized windows. No curtains yet, just raw glass and quiet air. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't check it right away. I let it sit there, face down on the hardwood, vibrating like a lie that hadn't earned its voice. My new place wasn't big, didn't need to be. One bedroom, clean lines, bookshelves made from crates and old lumber, a single couch that didn't match the rug, and I liked it that way. I bought everything myself, picked it out, hauled it up the stairs, assembled it with no help and no commentary. It was mine. There were no photos of the past, no wedding albums, no couples beach selfies with forced smiles. The only frame I kept held a handwritten recipe from my mother in faded ink. Daniel, use good butter, never rush risotto. That was it. That was family. I picked up the phone, read both messages again, and let the silence between us stretch. She wasn't trying to rebuild anything. She was reaching into the vacuum, hoping the man she used to minimize would still be there, waiting. But I wasn't waiting. I deleted the messages. No reply, no emoji, no cathartic punctuation. Just gone. Because closure isn't something you grant someone else. It's something you carve out for yourself, clean and deliberate, like pruning a dead branch before it poisons the tree. After I deleted her words, I walked to the tiny balcony off the kitchen, sat down on the metal chair I found beside a dumpster, cleaned up, repainted. I sipped my coffee and watched the city breathe. People below hustling to brunch, a woman in yoga pants arguing with her dog, a teenager vaping behind a bus stop. Real life. None of it curated. I pulled out a worn paperback from my pocket and started reading. No music, no distractions, just pages and air and peace. There was a time I would have killed to hear those words from her. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. But now, they didn't sting. They didn't flatter. They felt like a postcard sent too late from a place I'd already visited and left. She was chasing a version of me that no longer existed, and I was protecting a version of myself that finally did. They started fading one by one, the friends who once sat around our dinner table with wine and passive comments, who clinked glasses and whispered how she could do so much better. The same ones who posted heart emojis under her breakup glow-up selfies and called Trevor a total upgrade. Those friends. Candace was first to flinch. She posted a cryptic Instagram story over a photo of a half-drunk mimosa. Some of y'all lost something solid and didn't even know it. No tags, no location. But the timing was perfect. Right after I ran into her at the market near my new place. She looked surprised to see me, healthier, lighter, no longer orbiting someone else's moods. You look different, she said. I feel different. She didn't ask for details, just smiled too long and said, she talks about you, you know, but only when she's not posting. The next friend to vanish from her orbit was Lila, the one who used to praise Trevor's vision board energy. Lila blocked her completely after a heated group chat fallout involving rent, a broken promise, and one very public incident at a wine bar involving Trevor and someone named Cassie. By the time week 3 hit, the only people left in her circle were baristas who didn't remember her name and social media followers too far away to notice the cracks in real life. She stopped posting altogether. The filters dried up, the captions disappeared. No more new energy or yoga poses on beach balconies she didn't pay for. Her page became a timeline of decay, frozen smiles, still frame ambition, a digital ghost of a woman who thought reinvention meant detonation. And then she called my sister. Not me, my sister. I was at her house when the call came in. I saw her look at the screen, then at me. Her, she said flatly, then answered. I could only hear one side, but it was enough. I see. No, he doesn't want to talk. Because there's nothing left to say. A pause. 5 minutes won't fix what you broke in 5 years. Another pause. No, I'm not passing anything along. If he wanted to hear it, he'd have answered you himself. Then she hung up. My sister turned to me, shrugging like she was shaking off a fly. She sounded tired, not sad, just out of moves. I nodded. She ran out of audience. She exhaled through her nose and went back to chopping onions. Later that night, I got a text from an unknown number. Please, just 5 minutes. I just want to talk. You don't even have to say anything. Blocked. Her desperation wasn't explosive. It was quiet, lingering, like smoke after the fire's already died, still trying to make someone cough. But the most telling part? No one rushed in to save her. Those same friends who once lifted her up on the pedestal of self-discovery were now politely ghosting brunch invites. No more group selfies, no more comment sections full of "Yes, queen," just silence. Because eventually even enablers get tired of being associated with collapse. And when there's no one left to clap for you, even the performance starts to feel pointless. She thought her exit was a step up, but now she realized the only direction she'd taken was out. 2 months after the blurry bar photo surfaced, the one that cracked open her curated dream and exposed the man she called better for the recycled cliche he always was, she came back, not metaphorically, not digitally. She showed up in person on a rainy Thursday, standing at the threshold of a life she didn't realize had closed behind her. She brought a suitcase this time, wheeled it up the familiar driveway in silence, as if her return were some humble pilgrimage rather than an act of desperation. Her hair was pulled back, makeup minimal, expression stiff and unpracticed. For once, she wasn't dressed to impress. No branded athleisure, no faux boho layers, just jeans and a sweater that sagged at the elbows, like even her clothes had stopped believing in reinvention. She stepped up to the porch, same one she used to decorate with string lights for Instagram, and reached for the key she'd kept hidden inside a sock drawer, taped under a jewelry box marked "Important." A memento, a backup, a lifeline. It didn't fit. She tried again, slower, like the lock might remember her if she was gentle, but locks don't bend for nostalgia. She knocked, once, twice, waited. No answer. She stepped back, squinting at the windows, looking for movement. Maybe she imagined the curtains fluttering. Maybe she thought if she just stood still long enough, the house would let her back in, like some wounded animal she once owned. Instead, she pulled out a folded sheet of paper from her coat pocket. Lined notebook paper, torn edge, written in pen that had smudged from her grip. "I miss you. Please come home." She stared at it for a long time before taping it to the door, crooked, like her resolve. Then she left the suitcase on the welcome mat and walked to her car, parked crooked, tires angled like she hadn't planned on staying long, just until she was welcomed, forgiven, absorbed. She sat in the car for almost an hour, engine off, window cracked, eyes fixed on the porch like the house might answer back. But it never did, because I wasn't there. I hadn't lived there for weeks. The place was now maintained by a company that handled rentals, professional, impersonal, efficient. I'd signed the lease over to a couple relocating from out of state. Young, kind, quiet. They'd repainted the kitchen and replaced the light fixtures. The place no longer looked like it remembered her. And the cleaning lady, Maria, came by every Thursday to keep the place spotless between tenant transitions. She arrived right after my ex drove off, found the suitcase, read the note. She snapped a photo, texted me. "Want me to do anything with this?" "Toss it," I replied. "All of it." 10 minutes later, the note was gone. The suitcase placed beside the trash bins, unopened, untouched. I didn't ask what was inside. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what it was filled with. Assumptions, leftovers, sentimental bargaining chips, maybe an old sweatshirt, maybe a framed photo she thought I'd forgotten. But she got one thing right. I had come home. Just not to the place she expected. I'd come home to myself. And that door she kept knocking on? It hadn't been hers in a long, long time. The bench was cold, but Daniel didn't mind. It grounded him. The park was still waking up. Dew on the grass. A slow ripple across the lake as ducks paddled toward nothing in particular. Joggers passed by with nods. A man walked his aging golden retriever, both of them moving like they'd known each other forever. Daniel sipped his coffee and let the quiet settle in his bones. Not the kind of quiet that follows a storm, but the kind that tells you the storm's not coming back. For a long time, he didn't know what peace felt like. He used to confuse it with numbness, with the absence of noise. But now, he knew better. Peace was presence. It was space uncluttered by performance. It was choosing stillness instead of chasing validation. A soft voice broke his thoughts. "Good morning." she said. He turned, and there she was, Clara, his friend's colleague, the one who brought pastries to every meeting and remembered people's dogs' names, the one who didn't flirt, didn't posture, just listened. She handed him a second cup. I remembered you said you liked dark roast. He smiled. You remembered right. They sat without speaking for a while, sipping quietly. No pressure, no false urgency. The wind lifted the edges of her scarf and she tucked it back with a kind of ease that didn't demand attention. They talked, not about exes, not about who did what to whom, just books, places they wanted to visit, the best diner fries within 20 miles. She told him about a road trip she once took in a beat-up Jeep with no air conditioning. He told her about the time he tried to build a treehouse and nearly took out the neighbor's power line. They laughed, not loud, not performative, just enough. And then his phone buzzed in his coat pocket. He didn't reach for it immediately. He already knew. Eventually he pulled it out. One notification, a message. Where are you? No name needed. He could feel the anxiety behind the words, the not knowing, the imagining, the unraveling of a story where she was still the protagonist. He didn't reply. He turned off the phone. Clara glanced at him. Everything okay? He nodded. Yeah, just letting go of something. She didn't press, just smiled and looked out over the lake. Daniel leaned back on the bench, exhaled through his nose, and let the rising sun warm his face. He wasn't bitter, just lighter, because she'd made her choice, and he'd made his life. Let her think he disappeared. Truth is, he finally showed up, for himself.